Right now, you're the only human species on Earth. But for most of our history, that wasn't true. At one point, at least 6 different human species were alive at the same time, sharing rivers, coastlines, and forests with each other. We weren't the strongest. We weren't the biggest. We definitely weren't the only ones with big brains. Picture it. Campfires burning a few valleys apart, each one belonging to a completely different kind of human, none of them knowing they were living through the final chapter of their own species. And yet somehow, we're the only ones left standing. So what actually happened to the others? Where did they go, and why didn't any of them make it? For a long time, scientists thought human evolution was a straight line, one species turning into the next in order, until you get to us. You've probably seen that old textbook image, a hunched ape slowly straightening up into a modern human, walking left to right. That's not what happened. The real picture looks more like a family tree with a lot of dead branches, and some of those branches were alive at the exact same time as us, walking the same earth, hunting the same animals, living just a few hundred miles away. Let's meet a few of them. Scientists piece all of this together from fossils, stone tools, and increasingly DNA pulled straight out of ancient bone. Different techniques work for different time frames. Carbon dating only reaches back about 50,000 years, so anything older relies on methods like potassium-argon dating, measuring the radioactive decay of volcanic rock layers around a fossil. It's slow, painstaking work, and the picture keeps changing as new finds turn up. Homo erectus, the longest surviving human species we know of, they were around for almost 2 million years, nearly 20 times longer than we've existed so far. They were also the first of our relatives to walk out of Africa and spread across Asia. They made stone hand axes that stayed almost unchanged in design for over 1 million years, an incredibly stable piece of technology. The last known group lived on the island of Java in Indonesia, and evidence suggests they were still alive as recently as 100,000 years ago. Then there's Homo floresiensis, nicknamed the Hobbit because of their small size, some barely over 3 feet tall. They lived on the island of Flores, also in Indonesia, likely shrinking over generations in a process called island dwarfism, where limited food and no predators shrink a species down over time. They went extinct around 50,000 years ago. Scientists still debate exactly which ancestor they evolved from. It's one of the stranger mysteries in the whole human family tree. There's also Homo naledi, discovered deep inside a South African cave system called Rising Star, reachable only through a chute so narrow that only a very specific body type could fit through. Their fossils are surprisingly recent. Some estimates put them as late as 250,000 years ago, despite having a brain size closer to much older, more primitive species. Some researchers even think they may have deliberately placed their dead in that chamber, which, if true, would be startling for a species with such a small brain. That burial claim specifically is genuinely disputed in the field. Plenty of researchers aren't convinced the evidence for intentional burial holds up yet, even though the age of the fossils themselves is well established. That's already 4 different species living at different times, in different corners of the world, and we haven't even gotten to the 2 most well-documented ones yet. But the species most people have actually heard of is the Neanderthal. Neanderthals lived across Europe and Western Asia for about 400,000 years. They weren't the dim-witted cavemen from old cartoons. They made tools, used fire, hunted large game like mammoths and cave bears, buried their dead, and there's growing evidence they made art. They likely hunted in coordinated groups, using strategy to bring down animals many times their size. Something that takes real communication and planning, not just brute strength. In Spain, cave paintings at a site called La Pasiega have been dated to a time before modern humans ever arrived in the region, which means, if that dating holds up, Neanderthals painted them. Their brains, on average, were actually slightly larger than ours. The fossil that gave Neanderthals their name and got them recognized as a distinct species was found in 1856. In a valley in Germany called Neander Valley, which is where the name comes from. A couple of earlier bones had actually turned up before that, but nobody realized what they were looking at yet. And here's the part that surprises most people. Neanderthals and Homo sapiens didn't just cross paths, we interbred with them. This isn't speculation, Brian. It's written directly into your DNA. In 2010, scientists sequenced the Neanderthal genome for the first time, led by a biologist named Svante Pääbo, work that later won him the Nobel Prize. Pulling usable DNA out of a 40,000-year-old bone isn't easy. Most of it is degraded or contaminated by bacteria, but his lab pioneered the techniques to make it work. What they found was that most people with non-African ancestry today carry somewhere between 1 and 2% Neanderthal DNA. Not metaphorically, literally. It's sitting in your genome right now, quietly influencing things like your immune system and even how your skin reacts to sunlight. More recent research has even found small traces of Neanderthal DNA in some African populations too, likely from later migrations moving back into the continent. Neanderthals aren't even the only ones we mixed with. In a cave in Siberia, scientists found a tiny finger bone that didn't match any known human species. They called this new group the Denisovans, and we still don't have a full skeleton of one, just fragments of bone and DNA. Years later, a jawbone found in a cave in Tibet turned out to belong to the same mysterious group, showing they'd spread much further than anyone expected. It gets stranger. In that same Siberian cave, scientists found the bone fragment of a teenage girl who turned out to be half Neanderthal and half Denisovan, a direct hybrid between two different human species, nicknamed Deni. It's the only fossil of its kind ever found. That Denisovan DNA shows up in living people today too. Some populations in Papua New Guinea and other parts of Melanesia carry up to 4 to 6% Denisovan DNA, the largest genetic leftovers of any of these vanished species. And it's not just leftover trivia. One gene inherited from Denisovans, found in modern Tibetan populations, actually helps people survive at extreme high altitude, where oxygen is thin. A species that vanished tens of thousands of years ago is still helping people breathe today. So if Neanderthals were smart, capable, and even related to us by blood, why aren't they still here? This is where things get less certain. Scientists don't have one confirmed answer. They have a handful of leading theories, and most researchers think it wasn't just one cause, but several, hitting at the same time. One theory: direct competition. As Homo sapiens spread into Neanderthal territory, we may have simply outcompeted them for food and resources, hunting the same herds and occupying the same caves and shelters, generation after generation. Another, climate. The world was going through wild swings in temperature during this period, on top of repeated ice age cycles that reshaped entire landscapes within just a few thousand years, and Neanderthal populations, adapted to a fairly specific environment, may not have been able to adapt fast enough to keep up. A third theory points to population size. Genetic evidence suggests Neanderthal groups were small and scattered, sometimes just a few dozen individuals, which can lead to inbreeding and a slow genetic decline over generations. A population too thin to bounce back from a bad few centuries. And then there's the theory that they didn't fully disappear at all, that enough interbreeding happened over thousands of years that Neanderthals were gradually absorbed into the much larger, faster-growing Homo sapiens population, rather than wiped out in any dramatic way. Every one of those explanations has real evidence behind it. None of them, on their own, fully explains what happened. The truth is probably some mix of all four. Not a single dramatic extinction event, more like a slow fade over thousands of years, until one day there was only one human species left standing. And that's what makes this so strange to think about. For almost all of human history, being human didn't mean being alone. It meant sharing the planet with other kinds of humans. different, but not that different. Every one of those other species eventually disappeared. We're the exception, the one branch that didn't die out. It's a strange kind of luck when you think about it. Not because we were destined to make it, but because so many chance events in so many different places all had to break in our favor for even one branch to survive this long. And if you carry Neanderthal or Denisovan DNA, which statistically you probably do, then in a very real sense, those species never fully vanished. They're still walking around, still breathing thin mountain air a little easier, just folded into us. That means right now, there are more copies of ancient Neanderthal genes walking around on Earth than there ever were actual Neanderthals alive at any one time. So next time someone says humans have always been alone at the top, remind them, we weren't alone for most of our history. We were just the last ones standing. And these 6 species aren't even the whole list. There are contested fossils and disputed finds that could add even more branches to this story. If you want more deep dives into where we actually came from, subscribe. There's a lot more of our own story we haven't gotten to yet.